Okay, so here are a couple examples about the multiplication rule, which is the second part of section 4.2. Just to kind of introduce this in the PowerPoint, usually they say the probability of A and B, which means A occurs in the first trial, B occurs in the second trial. We'll talk about this notation a little bit later. We can do it intuitively, which is how I typically do it, or we can use a form or rule. We could do either way. And the other thing you want to keep in mind is events are independent. If the occurrence of one does not affect the other one, we'll do an example of that. That will be actually this one over here on the right. And then we'll do a dependent example as well. The following things we want to kind of keep in mind when they say with replacement, that's a hint of independent events. Without replacement means dependent events. Okay, so let's go ahead and go through these two examples here. Okay, so this was on the handout that I put on Canvas. So it says a box contains 2 red balls, 3 green, and 4 white, which is 9 total. And in both cases here, you're looking for the probability of selecting 2 white balls. You pick a ball, replace it in the first one, and then pick a second white ball. So I put W1 for the first one being white, W2 for the second one being white, in both cases. In this case, replace it. In this case, you don't. Okay, so just give you a little hint about that. Let me go to that PowerPoint here. So with replacement is a hint of independent events. Without replacement is a hint of dependent events. Okay, so now let's actually go through these. Okay, I'm going to do it intuitively first. Okay, so this is our box. It says you draw a ball, note its color, replace it, and then draw the second ball. Find the probability of selecting 2 white balls. Whenever we're looking at one trial after the other, we want to multiply the probabilities together. So what this means is we're looking for the first one to be white, and then we're going to multiply the probability the second one's white. The probability the first one's white is going to be 4 out of 9, and then we replace it so it looks exactly the same. This is a probability the second one will be white, and that's also 4 out of 9, and then I just simplified that. Okay, so that's the independent events. Now let's take a look at this one where they're dependent. This is probably the first one's white, which again is 4 out of 9. And then now I don't replace it, so now it's going to look like this. We have 3 white left altogether. We have 8 total. So the probability the second one is white is going to be 3 out of 8. So again, this is probably the first one's white. We took a white one out. Now we're looking for the probability the second one's white, and we simplify from there. Okay, so the intuitive way, which is honestly the easiest way to do it, is you take the probability of the first event and you multiply the probability of the second event and make sure the event B is found by assuming that A has already occurred. Okay, so I think I'm going to go ahead and skip this formal multiplication rule because it's much easier to do it using the intuitive way. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to this way and just kind of do it this way instead. So the things you want to kind of think about when you look at this is, first of all, when you're looking at one trial after another, usually they mean the word and that means you multiply the probabilities together. And the other thing is make sure that if they say with replacement, that means they're independent. That means one trial, probably the first one being white, is not going to affect the probability the second one being white and so forth. If they say without replacement or some other words like different or too different, something of that sort, then they're dependent, which means once you take one out, it's going to change the probability of the second event. But again, we take the probability of the first event, we don't replace it, and then we take the probability of the second event. Okay, so I'm going to stop here with this one. We'll do this one, another example. Another video, I mean.